The day before my 18th birthday, my elder brother brought back a woman and said to me, "Luna, you're not the biological child of the Collins family. Sonny is the one." I stood in the huge living room, listening to the echo of that cold voice. My mind went blank for a full minute before I came to my senses and understood the meaning of his words. The girl, who was sheltered behind my brother, timidly poked her head out. There was a trace of uneasiness on her face and a fleeting look of cunning. She looked at the magnificent villa of the Collins family with a bit of panic, gazing at the luxurious, almost extravagant new home she was about to move into. As for me, looking at my brother Charles's face with a sickly smile, I just felt a sense of desolation in my heart. My name is Luna, and I was the daughter of the Collins family, one of the top wealthy businessmen in City B, a genuine socialite. My father, Jack, was engaged in real estate development in his early years. Almost half of the CBD in City B was developed by him. Later, Jack married my mother, Riley, who had a political background. The combination of politics and business made them prosperous for more than a decade. They also successively invested in the film, entertainment, and electronics industries, and actually built a business empire. In the face of great wealth, it can be said that they could influence everything, but when things go smoothly in one aspect, God will always make up for it in other places. Really, it's quite melodramatic. For example, their son is the illegitimate child of Jack and the nanny when Jack was drunk in his youth, and the daughter they have raised for 18 years with real money is the one who was switched at birth and wrongly reported. "Luna, did you hear what I said? You're no longer the young lady of the Collins family. Hurry up and pack your things and get out of the Collins family." Charles walked up to me, tilting his chin and looking at me with a hint of provocation, as if he wanted to see how embarrassed I would be when he could finally step on my identity and dignity. "Brother, it's normal for sister not to be able to accept it for a while. After all, she has lived here for so many years. Don't force her. I believe mom and dad will handle it well." Sunny blinked her eyes innocently and looked at her brother Charles, whom she had only known for 3 days, a bit obsequiously. There was still some ambiguous affection in her eyes. It's understandable. After all, just judging from his appearance, Charles is even more handsome than many popular celebrities. His young CEO's appearance has a touch of the purity and vulnerability of a teenager. He is completely out of reach wherever he is. Recently, even the superstar Bella in the entertainment industry has expressed more than once that she is willing to sleep with him. Let alone a little girl who seemingly came out of nowhere. Unfortunately, what a pity, Charles is a complete lunatic. I bit my lip, remained silent for a long time, then raised my head and looked at Charles, saying, "You bastard." Charles didn't show me any mercy either and cursed back. "I'm still better than a bastard, damn it. It would really be impolite to endure it any longer." I took a big step forward and grabbed Charles's hair. "How dare you lay your hands on me?" Charles pressed my forehead with one hand and choked my neck with the other. He really had a lot of strength. "Brother and sister, don't fight." "Ah, the new sister, Sunny, was accidentally kicked when she tried to break up the fight and was completely stunned. She probably never expected that the grudges in a wealthy family would not follow the route of palace intrigue but would directly turn into a brawl like shrews. What's even more outrageous is that all the servants and the butler in the house just stood far away and watched. "Get lost," Charles and I said in unison. Charles tore out a lock of my hair, and I scratched his handsome face. Our father, Jack, came back late at night that day. He rushed back overnight by private jet from the southern hemisphere. Ignoring his fatigue, Jack almost kicked open the door and rushed in. Jack had an imposing manner. Every strand of his hair seemed to show his unhappiness. The butler stood behind him, trembling and not daring to say a word. From his face, it could be seen that Jack was really angry this time. "You're quite capable of causing trouble." Jack tried to make his tone calm, but anyone could tell that there was a surging anger hidden beneath the calm surface. "Dad," Charles mumbled, losing his usual arrogance and decadence. There was a trace of imperceptible trembling in his voice. Jack didn't even give his dear son a glance. He lit a cigar, leaned back on the $300,000 leather sofa, squinted his eyes, and glanced at Sunny. "You're the one Charles picked up, my biological daughter." Jack looked at her with a disdainful look, showing neither the ecstasy of recognizing his daughter nor any disgust. Jack's gaze was like that of someone examining a commodity. "Yes, a commodity." Sunny keenly sensed Jack's scariness and nodded timidly. The ecstasy of returning to a wealthy family was instantly replaced by an unknown fear, evidence. Jack said concisely. Charles quickly handed over the freshly made paternity test. Dad, Sunny is indeed your daughter. She was mistakenly taken by the nurse at birth and has been living outside for 18 years. Fortunately, through the comparison in the gene bank, we found her, Charles said. While flipping through the paternity test, Jack said indifferently, why did you suddenly think of doing a DNA test, and where did you find her? You've really gone to a lot of trouble, Charles. Hearing Jack say this, Charles felt a bit embarrassed. It was obvious to everyone that tomorrow was my 18th birthday, and Jack was going to announce the matter of my share as the heir. Charles did this at this time, neither too early nor too late, just for the inheritance right of the Collins family. Charles was the eldest son, that's true, but the identity of the butler's child and the illegitimate son was a scar that he couldn't show in public. Jack ignored him, and Jack's wife, the properly married daughter of a wealthy family, would definitely not let him inherit the family business they had built, so Charles had to fight for it. Over the years, he had been fighting openly and secretly. Once he had a fatal move, he would definitely strike with all his might. The biological daughter was mistakenly taken. You can't possibly not know that when Luna was born, I booked Maria private hospital. It only served us for a month before and after. You're saying she was mistakenly taken, Jack mocked, as if he had heard something ridiculous. Charles's face turned pale, but then he quickly recovered his composure. Dad, I don't know the specific situation, but the DNA can't be wrong. Luna is indeed not your child. Sunny is the one. Looking at his determined expression and then at Sunny, who was cowering beside Charles. Jack didn't say anything. Sunny's face, especially her eyebrows and eyes, did bear some resemblance to his. Moreover, Charles wasn't stupid. If he didn't have solid evidence, he wouldn't play with fire like this, so the truth could only be that, whether it was someone seeking revenge or trying to encroach on the Collins family's property back then, they had replaced Jack's real daughter with me, an imposter. If this assumption was true, then I was not only an imposter but also an imposter who was deliberately sent to play the trick of substituting the fake for the real. Jack didn't speak. Charles kept his head down, and Sunny didn't dare to breathe loudly, and I stood there, feeling very embarrassed in the face of this situation. The makeup on my face was smudged, my hair was in a mess, and there were Charles's footprints on my dress. I thought that since the real daughter was here, as an imposter, should quietly leave. Otherwise, when Charles arranged for the media and reporters, would only be more disgraced. Just as I lowered my head and was about to slip away, Jack spoke up. Luna, stay here, ignore the others, you will always be my daughter. Unlike his cold attitude towards Charles, when Jack talked to me, there was a hint of doting in his tone. Since Sunny is also my daughter, just bring her in. With such a big house, can't it accommodate 3 people? Jack said with some helplessness and a bit of warning. Charles didn't say anything. He probably didn't expect that Jack could be so partial. Even though I was now an imposter of unknown origin, Jack still seemed to love me. Sunny looked very unhappy but didn't dare to argue. She was dressed simply. Presumably, she had lived an unhappy life in the past many years. She had originally thought that she could enter a wealthy family overnight and change her life. But she didn't expect that she would have to live under the same roof as the fake young lady. Dad, I will get along well with sister. Sunny hesitated for a while and then said in a delicate and weak voice, although sister has taken away your love and mom's love from me for so many years, she didn't know about it. She is also innocent. I won't blame her. I also know the feelings that mom and dad have had with her over the years. I won't be jealous. I will be good, Sunny said. Looking at Jack with innocent big eyes filled with tears, she didn't directly blame me in her words, but every word was actually blaming me. Yes, Dad, now that you and Sunny have finally recognized each other, our family is finally reunited, Charles added sincerely, stabbing me in the heart. Yes, a family. Then what was I? That's right, I was just an imposter who was switched. I was nothing. My 18-year dream ended on this day, and what replaced it was a nightmare. Jack spent only a few days at home throughout the year. Even though such a big thing had happened, he only stayed for 3 days in a hurry and then left again. After Sunny came back, Riley, the woman I had called mom for 18 years, was overjoyed. She hugged Sunny every day, calling her baby, and wiping tears of joy every day. Baby, you've suffered so much over the years. It's all mom's fault. Mom will make it up to you with all her might. Tell Mom whatever you want. Mom couldn't wait to hold her in her arms and embrace her tightly. Sunny was hugged obediently and said sweetly, Mom, I don't want anything. I just want to be close to you every day. Only in this way will I not be afraid in this family. After saying that, she pretended not to be noticed and glanced at me. Sure enough, after hearing what she said, Mom immediately raised her head and glared at me. Luna, have you bullied Sunny? Before I could defend myself, Mom continued. Now that your sister is back, you should take care of her. She has suffered so much over the years. Instead of feeling guilty, you even bully her. Isn't that too much? No, Mom, sister didn't bully me. It's just that I'm too stupid to do anything well, so I made sister unhappy. Sunny's voice became even lower. You still say no. Look how scared you are. Mom was even angrier. Don't be afraid of her. If she dares to treat you badly, tell Mom, and Mom will deal with her. Sunny shrank her neck and said with a hint of a suppressed sob, I just want to be close to you, but sister said that she also wants to sleep in the room next to you. What? Haven't you moved out of your room yet? Luna, don't you know your place? Mom said with anger and a hint of gloom. I've already investigated clearly. You're just an orphan from City C. You were switched by someone with malicious intent to take revenge on us. And that's why you've enjoyed so many years of glory and wealth. You're nothing without the Collins family. Now are you getting bold enough to compete with the Collins family for things? I'm telling you, Sunny is my daughter, and you're nothing, bastard, trash. Do you even deserve to live in Sunny's room? Mom shouted sharply. I'm telling you, move out immediately and move to the nanny's room on the first floor. That's where you belong according to your status, Mom said, putting her hands on her hips and pointing at my nose. I was speechless and couldn't say a word. This was the mother who had loved me for 18 years. Just because of a word from Sunny, she had abused me. I was even more aggrieved. On that day, I was going to move out of the room for Sunny. It was she who refused, saying that she wasn't used to living in such a big bedroom and would be scared alone, and she wouldn't move in here. How could I have believed her nonsense? I was so stupid. I was even more heartbroken, although I had expected it. So quickly I had changed from Miss Luna in the Collins family to a bastard, and these words came from the mouth of the woman who had raised me for 18 years. My mother, yes, I should understand. She was no longer my mother, she was Sunny's mother. The love she had given me originally belonged to Sunny. I was just a thief. I didn't know where my biological mother was. And the woman I had called Mom for 18 years didn't want me anymore. I didn't have a mother anymore. Thinking of this, my eyes became sour involuntarily, and finally, it turned into a hoarse sentence. Okay, Mrs. Collins, I'll move right away. Mom looked at my obedient appearance and snorted in satisfaction. Then she gave the butler a meaningful look. So, without anyone else having to say anything, my things were stuffed into boxes and almost thrown to the first floor. Several boxes weren't fastened tightly and opened, so the living room was in a mess. Sunny timidly moved into my luxurious princess room on the second floor while looking at me triumphantly. I almost ran downstairs as if I were fleeing, looking at the luggage scattered all over the floor. I didn't know where to start, because I was wearing a dress and it was inconvenient to squat down, and the servants didn't show any intention of coming up to help at all. Instead, they just whispered and laughed at me. So I had to kneel on the ground and put the spilled things back bit by bit. All kinds of custom-made dresses lying on the ground were like a joke. My cosmetics were also broken, the powder compact mixed with the essence, sticky and thick, and flowed onto my favorite black dress, looking modeled like a crying face. I knelt on the ground and cleaned up bit by bit, packing the clothes into the boxes, picking up the still usable cosmetics and putting them into the boxes. And picking up the broken bottles. Accidentally, the fragments scratched my hand. So in the still messy situation that I hadn't sorted out yet, there was some more scarlet blood. I tried to wipe it, but the more I wiped, the redder it became. I grabbed a summer dress, wrapped it around my injured finger, and continued to tidy up. She's really pitiful. Should we go and help her? A servant asked another servant in a low voice. Definitely don't go. If the madam finds out, she'll skin you alive. The other servant quickly stopped her. That's right, the young master doesn't like her either. Don't offend the people of the Collins family because of her. The wealthy family is really heartless. Look at how embarrassed she is now. She's even worse off than us servants. Someone laughed quietly. The voices weren't loud, but they were just loud enough for me to hear clearly. I bit my lip, didn't say anything. quickly picked up all the things, and was about to stand up and carry them into my nanny's room. At this moment, a pair of feet appeared in front of me, and the knees almost hit my nose. Because of sorting out my things, my knees had gone numb from kneeling. I shifted my body a bit and looked up, only to see Charles's face with a half-smile. Although he was handsome, he was vicious. "Yo, the young lady of the Collins family, why are you in such a mess?" Charles didn't hide his disdain at all. I ignored him. I could have had a quarrel with him originally, but I really wasn't in the mood to deal with an idiot today. I stood up, picked up my suitcase, and walked towards the nanny's room. Charles was very tall. He blocked my way, gave me a cold look, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily turned up. If it weren't for that extremely sinister look in his eyes, it would have been a really good-looking face. "What, are you feeling inferior now?" Charles crossed his arms in front of his chest. "It's just a matter of changing a room. Isn't the nanny's room a perfect match for you, you little bastard from the orphanage? Get out of my way." I pushed him, but he didn't budge. "You still have such a bad temper, sister," Charles said mischievously, stretching the word sister very long. "But the nanny's room is so small, and sister has so many clothes, as well as those precious jewelry, earrings, and necklaces. How can they all fit in there?" Charles pretended to be concerned and took the suitcase from my hand. Then, with a hint of mischievousness, he said, "How about, just throw them all away?" Then he suddenly smashed the suitcase hard onto the ground. With a bang, the suitcase that I had just managed to pack was scattered all over the floor again. "Ha ha ha," Charles burst into laughter, looking extremely happy, as if he had never been this happy before. He bent forward and backward with laughter and even clapped his hands. I stared at him, clenched my fists, and the cut on my hand that had been scratched by the glass reopened, and blood dripped down. I really wanted to punch him, very much, but as long as I was still in the Collins family, I had to endure it for one more day. I didn't even have my own biological parents to turn to. Charles seemed to enjoy my pathetic and submissive appearance immensely. This was a look that he hadn't seen in the past dozen or so years, a look of falling from grace. "Luna, look at yourself," Charles smiled. "Luna, weren't you always so arrogant and proud? Luna, your mother doesn't want you anymore. Luna, you're just like trash now." Charles reminded me word by word. Finally, he said, "Luna, didn't you always look down on my background? I'm the son of the nanny, but now, the one living in the nanny's room is you. How do you feel about that?" I didn't expect Charles to say that. I thought he hated me for stealing our parents' love. Thought he was afraid that I would compete with him for the family property. Thought he disliked me for fighting with him since we were kids, but I never expected that he thought I looked down on him. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Charles was the illegitimate son of Jack and the nanny when Jack was young. This was a secret of the Collins family and also a scar that made him feel ashamed, because of this identity. Although he was the eldest son, he had never received his mother's love, only her hatred. My mother, Riley's, acrimony towards me had only lasted for 3 days, but for him, it had been a full 20 years, more than 7,300 days and nights. Jack didn't love him either, and I, his only sister, would only bully him recklessly. I remember that he was a very smart child when he was young. Whether it was in competitions or playing the violin in primary school, he was always the best in the school. But every time he brought back a trophy, Riley would only feel resentful, and Jack would either be nowhere to be found or just give a perfunctory Later, Charles stopped working hard and took on the image of a playboy and the son of the rich in other people's eyes, and his personality became more and more gloomy. The thing Charles did most often when we were kids was fight with me. That's right, I would be unreasonable, pick on him, and then we would get into a fight. "So, you've always thought that I looked down on you." I looked up at him. Charles didn't say anything, and his pursed thin lips betrayed him. I shook my head and didn't say anything more. I gave up on those scattered and messy luggage on the floor, walked into the nanny's room, and closed the door. In the cramped space, I forced myself to calm down. I was the one who should be crying the most. My smooth 18 years had turned out to be stolen. The 18th birthday ceremony I had been looking forward to had turned into a press conference for the Collins family to publicly recognize their biological daughter, Sunny, and I had gone from the beloved daughter of the Collins family to a joke. Without Jack's protection after he left, I had become a despised outcast. My mother didn't want me anymore, and my brother hated me. I was aggrieved, and more than that, I felt suffocated, as if I had a punch that I didn't know where to throw. I covered myself with the quilt and tried my best to hold back my sobs. Charles didn't know that things weren't like that. Since I could remember, I had loved this brother very much, but Charles hated me. My head was dizzy, and I fell asleep while crying. When I woke up, it was already dark outside the window, and I had actually been in a coma for a whole day. When I pushed open the door, the magnificent chandelier hurt my eyes. And it was like two different worlds compared to the dim nanny's room. The laughter and chatter of Sunny and my mother in the dining room could be heard from afar, and no one noticed me. I saw that my mother was in a very good mood, and she didn't look at Charles so harshly either. Sunny was holding a brand new LV bag, and the ecstasy on her face couldn't be hidden. "This bag is so expensive, Mom, why are you so good to me?" Sunny jumped up from the table, rushed over, and hugged my mother's neck, giving her a big kiss. "Mom, I love you so much." My mother was very pleased with Sunny's coquetry. She squinted her eyes and smiled. "What's a bag? Everything here belongs to you. My precious daughter has suffered so much all these years." Just as Sunny was about to say something, she suddenly saw me out of the corner of her eye and immediately fell silent. Everyone looked over, as if they had just noticed my presence. I felt a bit embarrassed and didn't know whether I should go over or not. But I was really hungry, extremely hungry. I hadn't eaten anything since the morning, and my stomach was churning so much that I couldn't be reserved, so I smiled awkwardly and sat down at the table. I just took one look and was stunned. The table was filled with Hunan cuisine, and I never ate spicy food. They had changed the chef so quickly. I still remembered that when the chef was new, he didn't know and made a slightly spicy shrimp burger. I took a bite and was so hot that I cried. My mother was furious, and since then, all the food on the Collins family's table had been light. I remembered that Jack had complained that the food was too bland, and my mother had always defended me, saying that eating light food was good for beauty. But now, a table full of red and green chili peppers was a reminder that I was no longer who I used to be. Charles looked at me with a half-smile, and my mother frowned, clearly showing her displeasure. I let out a soft sigh and put the red dishes into my mouth. "Sister, why did you start eating without even greeting Mom? Do you have a problem with us?" Sunny said in a plaintive voice. "Yeah, I thought Luna was going to go on a hunger strike to show her determination," Charles said maliciously, with a playful look on his face. When my mother heard this, she angrily threw down her chopsticks, glared at me, and said, "I never realized you were so ill-mannered before." I endured the burning pain from the spiciness of the Hunan cuisine and kept my head down. Seeing that I didn't respond, Sunny decided to add fuel to the fire. "Mom, look, sister must have a problem with me." Okay, baby, ignore her." My mother hugged Sunny and looked at me with a mix of helplessness and disgust. When she found out that I wasn't her biological daughter, at first, she had insisted on kicking me out. But Jack didn't agree, so she had to keep me. But that didn't stop her from hating me. Looking at her disgusted gaze, all I could say was, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Collins. I'm sorry, sister, I didn't quite understand, even if I wasn't her biological child. After all, we had been together day and night for 18 years. Even if it were a dog, there should be some affection. But now, since the blood relationship had been overturned, the 18 years of family affection seemed to disappear suddenly, and everything had become fake. If it were in the past, I would have chosen to argue, just like before, even if I wasn't ladylike, even if I was a bit willful, even if I had a good fight with my brother. But, imperceptibly, from the moment I learned that I wasn't the daughter of the Collins family, it was as if there was an invisible force pulling me, making me unable to resist. I wanted to talk back, to defend myself, but I just felt so suffocated in my chest that I couldn't say anything. Every time I wanted to do so, my body would instinctively endure it, as if it were a physical reaction. It was as if there was an invisible voice telling me, "Luna, this is what you should be like." What exactly should I be like? Was it just because I was switched when I was still in the cradle that I should make up for everything that Sunny had now? If I was taken from an orphanage, why couldn't I find any relevant files when I privately investigated? Where were my biological parents? And had they been unable to sleep at night and endured pain because they had lost me? I was clearly a victim too. While lost in these thoughts, it seemed that there were two of me fighting. One told me to resist and leave the Collins family, while the other taught me to endure. Later, the other one won. I lowered my head and started eating. Since I never ate spicy food, the food made my tongue hurt, my throat hurt, and it felt like there was a fire burning in my chest. I reached for the water cup on the table, and Charles subtly bumped into me. A full cup of water was poured onto Sunny's arm. Boiling water, it hurts, Sunny shrieked and jumped up, with tears streaming down her face. Sunny, are you okay? My mother quickly grabbed her hand. Slap, bitch. My mother cursed and slapped me hard in the face. How could you be so vicious? The servant quickly went to get the first aid kit, and the scene was in chaos. How could this be? Even the milk was warmed to 55 degrees. How could there be boiling water on the Collins family's dining table? I was at a loss. It wasn't me. I didn't. Slap. In response to me was another slap. Vicious. It clearly wasn't me. I clearly hadn't done anything. What was wrong with this world? My mind was in a mess, and my head ached terribly. It was as if something was about to burst out, but I couldn't release it. When Sunny was taken to the hospital, she was crying pitifully. I followed behind like a criminal. After the doctor's diagnosis, he applied some medicine and said it wasn't serious. Judging from the examination results, there's nothing serious. Just to be on the safe side, I applied some burn ointment. The attending doctor was an old acquaintance of the Collins family, Dr. Kevin, the VIP exclusive reception doctor. Although he was young, he was an expert-level figure who had been invited back with a high salary after studying abroad for many years. But it hurts so much. How could it be okay? You must not have done it carefully, relying on my mother's favor. Sunny shouted. Yes, Dr. Kevin, a large cup of boiling water. How could it not be serious? What if Sunny gets some scars? How will a girl deal with that? My mother anxiously asked the doctor. Boiling water. Dr. Kevin was stunned for a moment, looking at the melodramatic Sunny. He was about to say something but was warned by Charles's look, as if understanding something. Dr. Kevin said, I'll prescribe some medicine to prevent scarring. Sunny nodded in satisfaction and started to act coquettishly with my mother again. Dr. Kevin frowned slightly, almost imperceptibly. It seemed that there were a lot of petty tricks in the wealthy family to compete for favor. Clearly, the water temperature couldn't have been higher than 70 degrees. If she had been brought here a little later, there wouldn't even be any marks from the burn. But here she was, crying and wailing. It's all Luna's fault. I think you did it on purpose. My mother didn't care that there were other people around and started scolding me. You're a jinx, a vicious woman. Our Collins family was kind enough to take you in, but you're jealous of Sunny and even poured boiling water on her. My mother was so angry that she pushed me hard on the head again, with a bang. I wasn't prepared, and the back of my head hit the white wall of the hospital. A streak of bright red blood flowed down, extremely dazzling. For a moment, my mind went blank. I heard Sunny screaming. Her voice was so annoying, and the decibel was comparable to that of a screaming chicken. Charles also seemed to be saying something to me, but it didn't seem real through the buzzing in my ears. The pain didn't start to take effect until more than 10 seconds later. I squatted down and covered my head. Then it was as if something exploded in my mind, some things that I had always been unable to figure out, some things that made me feel powerless, some things that made me feel wronged. Suddenly, they became clear. Yes, all of this was fake. This world was fake, and my 18 years of life were just a prelude to this tragedy. I was in a sadomasochistic novel, a character who would be tortured to death. This is a sadomasochistic novel called The Return of the Real Daughter of the Rich Family. It tells the story of how, after Sunny, the real daughter of the Collins family who had been lost outside, returned, my status as the fake daughter plummeted. I was suppressed by Sunny everywhere. At the coming-of-age ceremony that the Collins family held for Sunny to make up for the one she missed, I was set up and lost my virginity, and thus my reputation was completely ruined. With great difficulty, I managed to get into university, but because of Sunny, I suffered from bullying for 4 long years and developed severe depression. The only quota for studying abroad that supported me to live on and escape from the Collins family was taken by Sunny. I could only continue to be trapped in City C and controlled by the Collins family. My mother, Riley, worried that I, her adopted daughter, would compete for the family property, transferred the shares and assets under her name to Sunny long ago. With the strong support of my father Jack's abundant funds and resources, Sunny had a smooth sailing abroad and shone brightly in the business world. She became a shining pearl that various prominent families vied to pursue. After returning to the country, she began the journey to become the heir of the Collins family. At this time, due to the long-term humiliation and suppression, I was already a bit dazed in my mind. The Collins family maliciously filmed and edited some videos of me acting crazy and then publicly claimed that I had a mental illness and forbade me from seeing anyone, further controlling me. My brother Charles, unable to bear the fact that as the eldest son, he got nothing in the Collins family, transferred the resentment that had accumulated over the years onto me, in addition to mental control and abuse. He even built a secret room in the Collins family mansion and regarded me as his exclusive possession. Everyone turned a blind eye to my suffering. While Sonny was showing off and making a splash at various social occasions, I was beaten black and blue in the dim secret room, when Sonny, on behalf of the Collins family, secured a $3.5 billion cooperation project in an industrial park. I was choked by Charles and pressed into the bathtub, almost drowned repeatedly. When Sonny got engaged to the young master of the Smith family, whom I had loved since I was a child, Charles kissed my face while playing their engagement video for me to watch. How did I know all these things? Because Charles would tell me every single detail, making me witness with my own eyes how glorious the real daughter was and how miserable I, the imposter, was. I tried to escape but was caught and had one of my legs broken. Because my attempt to escape was photographed and it was considered a disgrace to the Collins family, in their anger, they didn't let the doctor set my broken bone properly, so the leg that had been trained to dance ballet for more than 10 years became lame from then on. Since then, I could only drag my lame leg and move slowly. Every step I took was excruciatingly painful. I watched as Sonny took everything away from me. Watched as she inherited the family business of the Collins family. Watched as she snatched the boy I loved, and watched as she, in an arrogant manner, destroyed me step by step. Later, Sonny's ambition went far beyond that. In addition to controlling the Collins family, she also wanted to annex another wealthy family. Because my father Jack didn't approve of her radical approach and was reluctant to hand over the directorial power to her, she actually used drugs to paralyze Jack. Sonny also discovered Charles's actions of secretly cultivating his own forces. She began to use the power of the Smith family to eliminate those who opposed her in the Collins family and at the same time tried to annex the Smith family. For the sake of power and money, Sonny became more and more ruthless. She didn't even spare her own fiancé. Later, in a quarrel, Sonny accidentally killed the young master of the Smith family. In order to get away with the crime, they pushed me out and didn't allow me to resist. Even if I protested my innocence, even if I cried and shouted, no one would believe the truth that came out of a madman's mouth. When I died, I was only 25 years old, with a ruined reputation, full of unwillingness and covered in wounds. The most ridiculous thing was that after I died, when my adoptive father Jack, who was paralyzed in bed, shed tears out of a trace of guilt, Sonny told him that I was actually his biological daughter. I was the daughter of the nanny he had hidden in City M, who died during childbirth. I was another illegitimate child of the same parents as Charles, the child who was originally told to be dead. Upon hearing that the person he had abused for so many years and even sent to her death with his own hands was his biological daughter, Jack finally couldn't hold on and fell into a coma. Jack was only in his early 50s, but he ended up paralyzed and in a coma, which was really a pitiful situation. When my brother Charles learned that I was his biological sister of the same parents, thinking of the beastly things he had done to his own sister over the years, he vomited blood on the spot and became seriously ill and bedridden ever since. From beginning to end, there was no so-called fake daughter. All of this was just a story of the original wife outwitting the mistress and bringing the child back for revenge. For me, it was a sadomasochistic novel, from the perspective of the main storyline of Riley and Sonny. It was an extremely satisfying novel about tearing apart the mistress and avenging the wrongs. In the end of the story, Jack, the scumbag CEO who committed adultery during his marriage, was paralyzed in bed and lived a desolate life in his later years. The despicable nanny, the mistress, was discovered by the original wife when she was pregnant with her second child. She was set up and died on the delivery bed. She originally still had a faint breath left due to massive bleeding. But the original wife bribed all the doctors, who told her that the baby was stillborn. She couldn't bear such a shock and lost the will to live. The nanny's two children, one was abused to death by her own close family members, regarded as a fake daughter, and the other, after learning the truth, was seriously ill and lived a life worse than death. The big plot twist at the end of the story was that Sonny successfully whitewashed her image. It was as if all her viciousness had a legitimate reason. It was as if the 18 years of life that had been switched became the forbearance that paved the way for her return. It was as if everything I had suffered was what I deserved. Justice was served, and the villains met with miserable ends. The audience applauded and felt extremely satisfied. No one cared about me, who was rotting underground. No one sympathized with Charles, who was destroyed. No one was concerned about the young master of the Smith family who died unjustly, because we were just paper characters in the book who pushed the plot forward, and all the sufferings were to highlight the long-delayed justice. What was originally just a cliched and melodramatic sadomasochistic novel had been transformed here into a magnificent and perfect revenge story. This kind of plot had been repeated countless times, and I had suffered such abuse countless times. Driven by the plot and in the cycle of reincarnation, I became depressed, crazy, died, rotted, and then reincarnated again and again. Those university days when I was isolated, targeted, and slandered with false rumors, that body full of scars from taking a large number of pills due to depression and self-harm, the terrifying sounds of whips and slaps in that dark secret room, that disgusting rape and mental abuse, as well as the condemnation of being called a murderer and death itself. All seemed like an extremely cruel nightmare without an end. Perhaps it was because of the great pain, or perhaps it was because of the great unwillingness. I began to try to resist fate, either intentionally or unintentionally. The main storyline was corrected again and again, and my memory was erased again and again. The injuries and scars I had suffered always left marks, which were then erased. In the plot, there was no need for Luna, who was sharp and clear about love and hate. There was no need for Luna, who struggled desperately to escape from the quagmire. There was no need for Luna, who tried to resist. What was needed was just a beautiful but brainless woman who endured everything in silence, to accept that tempestuous fate, and to set off the endless darkness later with the supreme favor she received in the first 18 years of her life. The plot unfolded when I was 18 years old, so when everyone was sure that Sunny was Jack's biological daughter and I was an imposter, my life became a marionette from then on. The rising star who once shone brightly in the Varna International Ballet Competition, the girl who could speak 3 languages fluently and won the first place in the debate competition on behalf of her school, the Luna who was so stubborn since childhood that she could fight with her brother who was 2 years older than her and never cried, had already been obliterated. What was left was only a coward who was constantly framed, constantly apologized, and constantly pushed into the abyss. But this time, perhaps it was because God had mercy, I actually awakened. In the pungent smell of disinfectant in the hospital, the back of my head, which was pushed and injured by Mother Riley, had 4 stitches. A large patch of my beautiful hair was shaved off. Sitting on the hospital bed with a net on my head, I looked a bit ridiculous. But I felt extremely fortunate. Fortunately, this time, everything was still not too late. This time, I would never make the same mistake again. I would never be at the mercy of others like a mouse again, rotting in the mud and still bearing the notorious names of madman and murderer. To hell with fate, to hell with the revenge of the legal wife. I only knew that I was a person, a living person who never knew what I had done wrong until the day I died. At the best age of 18, I was violated, bullied, imprisoned, and deprived of the most basic dignity as a human being, and I walked towards the end of my life full of unwillingness. I only knew that even though I was an illegitimate child, even though my identity was not glorious, I didn't deserve to die. I wanted to change that damn plot, and I wanted to save myself, and those innocent people who were trampled to death. Riley pretended to be guilty and said, "Baby, Mom didn't mean it. I was just so worried when I saw you scald your sister, that's why I just pushed you gently." I recalled the plot. In my previous life, I never doubted her from beginning to end. As a result, there were second, third, and more intentional or unintentional injuries later, and they became more and more severe with each test. Now that I thought about it, her guilt was somewhat feigned, as if she was certain that I wouldn't resist. Sunny also walked in, seeing my appearance. There was mockery in her eyes, but her face was very well behaved. "It's all my fault. If it weren't for Mom being worried about my arm that was scalded by Sister, she wouldn't have been so hasty. But luckily, Sister is okay. You won't blame Mom, will you?" "Okay, she has a mild concussion. How can you say it's okay?" Before I could speak, Dr. Kevin walked in with an X-ray, frowning. "In this situation, she needs to be hospitalized for observation." The external injury on the back of the head is not a big deal, but there is congestion inside, and she also has a mild concussion. To avoid unnecessary risks, she should be hospitalized for a while first. What? Sister really has the delicate constitution of a young lady. If it gets out that she was just pushed gently, people might think that our Collins family treats this adopted daughter badly. Sunny mumbled as if acting coquettishly. Humph. Now everyone knows that I'm the adopted daughter of the Collins family. Sunny is deliberately mentioning the word, young lady, to provoke me, and she's also secretly admonishing me with the reputation that the Collins family cares about the most. The PUA has already started, just like they would do countless times in the future. But this time, how could I let you have your way? I weakly propped myself up, slowly raised my eyes, and my fluttering eyelashes were full of grievance and innocence. My eyes were almost brimming with tears. It's my fault, because the food was too spicy and my stomach hurt. I didn't hold the cup steady and scalded my sister. I got slapped by Mom. I've been feeling dizzy all the time, so I just didn't manage to dodge. I'm sorry, Mom. Just then, the nurse came to change the dressing. Hearing my words, the scene fell silent. Are you saying that Mrs. Collins hit you? Dr. Kevin frowned even more. No wonder there were rumors outside that after the Collins family recognized their biological daughter, they no longer paid much attention to the original daughter. Now it seemed that it was not just a matter of not paying attention, they were simply beating and scolding her. They could hurt her in front of outsiders, so who knew what they would do when they got home? You're talking nonsense. Mom Riley's face showed some embarrassment. I bought you the most expensive custom-made clothes. Sent you to the best schools. Which of the things you ate and used was not the same as Sunny's? How could you learn to frame others just to compete for favor? Luna, you really disappoint Mom. 3 or 4 nurses slowed down their movements and held their breaths, pricking up their ears to watch the drama. I bit my lip and spoke with a mixture of grievance and fear. I was wrong, Mom. I won't do it again. The appearance after just getting the stitches was really pitiful. In fact, the wound wasn't big, but with the internal congestion in the brain and the sutured wound, it really looked terrifying. Hearing me say this, people became even more suspicious that the Collins family didn't treat me well privately. How can you say that? Ever since I came back, you, sister, have disliked me and targeted me everywhere. You deliberately poured boiling water on me, thinking that you are my sister. I've never blamed you. But how can you say such things about Mom? Mom loves you so much. How heartbroken she must be. Sunny couldn't hold back the longest. At this time, she hadn't yet firmly established her position in the Collins family, and she was just using some petty tricks of being hypocritical. Even so, the little nurses around were a bit confused. Was it really the case that the arrogant adopted daughter couldn't tolerate the return of the real daughter and hurt her, and Mrs. Collins couldn't help but teach her a lesson? The grudges in wealthy families were really deep. Sorry to make you all laugh. My sister just had a head injury and is still a bit confused. Charles walked in at some point, held my hand, and spoke in a gentle voice. Charles was very good-looking. He had the appearance of a wealthy young master that girls liked. He looked both innocent and abstinent. His face was not as cold as usual but full of affection, and he looked at me with a look of concern. Anyone would think that he was a good brother who doted on his sister, only I knew the madness behind that look. Seeing that both Charles and Sunny said that, the staff present didn't want to offend anyone and quickly dispersed. Sure enough, the main storyline of the plot would still correct all the environmental deviations, but this time, through this test, I found that it seemed that the plot was no longer 100% unbreakable, with just a few words. The people around had some doubts instead of blindly and firmly believing in Sunny, although it was just a tiny bit of wavering. For me, it was of vital importance. This meant that the first crack had appeared in the iceberg. My mother Riley warned me not to talk nonsense. After Sunny made some sarcastic remarks, they both left in a hurry, since publicly recognizing their biological daughter. Riley had been busy preparing for the coming-of-age ceremony to make up for Sunny, custom-made dresses, top-quality champagne, and invitations to socialites in the political and business circles all required more attention than me. In the empty room, only Charles and I were left. Although I knew that Charles wouldn't cause me destructive harm until he lost everything and completely went crazy, the experiences of my previous life made me shudder from muscle memory. I involuntarily, almost instinctively, twitched my hand, which was keenly noticed by Charles. You're afraid of me, at this time. There were no other people in the ward. and Charles's face regained that playful, half-smiling expression. No, I raised my head and calmly looked into Charles's eyes, trying to see clearly the hidden madness in his eyes. Charles didn't avoid my gaze. He looked down at me, and his manner gave off a bit of the oppressive feeling that Jack had when he was young. Can I ask you a question? I looked at him seriously. Charles raised his eyebrows, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Waiting for me to speak. Exactly, why do you hate me? I asked this question that had puzzled me for a very long time. According to the plot, Sonny and Riley hated me because they hated my identity as the child of the mistress and wanted to take revenge on me. But I couldn't figure out before why Charles would count all his failures in the Collins family on me and why he could do such things. Don't you really know? The young lady of the Collins family. Charles held my hand, brought his face closer, and spoke in a gentle voice. Do you think I don't know about the things you did to usurp Jack's will? Do you think I don't know how you slandered me in front of Jack and Mom? Bastard, stray dog, disgusting guy. Whom do you think I was beaten like a dog by Jack and couldn't get up because of? Luna, the family property of the Collins family is more than enough for you to squander for several lifetimes. But you shouldn't have pushed me to the edge of a cliff. My dearest sister, you really make me so sad. I was stunned for a few seconds and then felt relieved. Now I can confirm that I'm never the only one trapped in the plot that repeats life after life. I wasn't that weak before I turned 18. Similarly, Charles wasn't as twisted and perverted towards me back then as he is now. Memories and a script that never actually happened were implanted in his mind, changing the will. Dad is only 40 years old. What kind of will is he changing? I shook my head and tried to communicate with him, but I sadly realized that I couldn't come up with more powerful arguments because my previous life experiences had been tampered with, and the future ones hadn't happened yet. After calming down for a few seconds, I asked Charles, no, it's not about the property, it's that you think I've always looked down on you, and you think that the reason you can't hold your head up in the Collins family is all because of me, right? Charles didn't say anything, which was tantamount to acquiescence. Brother, don't you really remember anything? I let out a sigh, feeling a bit desolate. When I was a child, since I could remember, the Collins family publicly claimed that you were the eldest son and grandson of the Collins family, worth hundreds of billions, a young master showered with love. But when we got home, you were like a ghost. Mother hated you, and father didn't love you either. Although the servants of the Collins family served you with good food and clothes, they also kept their distance from you. Only I followed you like a little tail, and you couldn't get rid of me. Charles bent down and squatted beside me, listening to me with great interest. I remember when I was very young. A chef saw that you were too lonely and secretly made a steamed bun in the shape of a little pig for you and even told you stories. Later, we never saw that chef again. From then on, others both pitied you and were afraid of you. Without mother's order, no one could talk to you. Whether you cried or got angry, everyone stayed far away as if you didn't exist. I continued. Charles seemed to be listening to someone else's story, showing no emotion, but the little finger he curled up betrayed him. It was a small gesture he might not even notice himself, which he would make when his emotions fluctuated. I overcame the fear from the memory of the previous plot and held Charles's hand. But brother, I have never pitied you, nor have I ever looked down on you. On the contrary, since I could remember, I've liked you very much. You were good-looking, intelligent, and had great talent in music and mathematics. I remember when I played the piano and got the notes wrong and was beaten on the hand. You deliberately played the violin beside me. The tutor didn't dare to scold you but was also amazed by your talent and was so distracted that he didn't have the heart to beat me anymore. And there was that time when I couldn't solve a chain problem for 3 days, but you solved it in just 3 minutes. I adored you so much then, when we were young. Mom and Dad loved me so much that they wanted to hold me in their hands and keep me in their mouths, so at that time, I stuck to you every day, hoping that they could also notice you. I recounted my memories one by one. Charles remained silent, still showing no obvious signs of emotion, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw that the nail of his little finger had dug into the flesh. Also, about the fights, I paused and then continued. When I was a child, I especially liked to pick on you and fight with you. I remember once, we fought from upstairs to downstairs, and later I pushed you down the stairs, and you hurt your arm quite seriously and didn't play the violin for 3 months, because of fear and sadness. I cried for many days, but if I could do it again, I would still fight with you, because at that time, you didn't have any friends. So I had to use the stupidest way to get close to you. After I finished speaking, I sat on the hospital bed and looked at Charles quietly. Charles was silent for a long time. When I almost thought he wasn't listening, he slowly stood up, smiled gently with his eyes and eyebrows, and said, "It's a nice story, but it's too warm-hearted. I'm almost touched." I gave a bitter smile. Sure enough, the plot wasn't so easily shaken, otherwise I wouldn't have struggled in vain time and time again. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days, and it was rare that no one came to harass me. Presumably, such a short and uneventful period of time was just a word like 3 days later that could be skipped over in that sadomasochistic novel, but I had to seize these 3 blank days to do a lot of things. I had to seize every opportunity for survival. In my previous life, Dr. Kevin was the family doctor who later set my broken bone. He was a loyal follower of Sunny. He used his professional convenience to issue a certificate of mental illness for me, and then guided the deterioration of my depression, and sent the videos of me acting crazy to the media. He was one of the accomplices who pushed me into the abyss, but this time, I vaguely felt that he was a bit different. These days, I frequently asked him about the situation of my head collision. I was especially worried that one day I might suddenly lose my memory of the plot and become an NPC again. Incidentally, I intentionally or unintentionally started conversations with him to find out what kind of girls he liked. I was afraid that during our interactions, he might take a fancy to Sunny again and start to turn to the dark side. Dr. Kevin patiently explained to me the situation of the blood clot in my head, told me that the stitches on the external wound could be removed in 2 days, and asked me not to worry. He thoughtfully told me that the place where the hair was shaved when the wound was sutured could be covered by tying my hair into a ponytail. Finally, after hesitating for a long time, he said that he liked girls with connotations and a pleasant speaking voice. I caught a glimpse of the tips of his ears turning red, and it was a bit funny. Fortunately, he didn't like girls like Sunny who were full of affectation. After confirming that Dr. Kevin hadn't started following the plot yet, I tried my best to build up his favorability during these 3 days. After all, just thinking about my lame leg in my previous life made my calves cramp. Afraid that I might be corrected by the main plot, I secretly wrote down the plot late at night and put it in a hidden password file disguised as an ebook that only I could open, to remind my future self, in order not to miss any details. I tried to be as detailed as possible, but such memories were too terrifying. As I wrote, I couldn't help but tremble and cry silently. Once, when Dr. Kevin came to do the rounds late at night, as soon as he opened the door, he saw me with red eyes and tears streaming down my face. Facing the stunned Dr. Kevin, I could only fool him by saying that I was reading a tragic romance novel. He fussed around and comforted me for a full hour, telling me that everything in the book was fake. As a result, the next day, he came to me blushing and asked me what novel I was reading and whether I could recommend it to him. I was really speechless. What about being ruthless and cruel? Why did he seem more like a cute and naive guy? Perhaps this was an opportunity, and I wanted to take a small gamble. I asked, "Dr. Kevin, could you do me a favor?" 5 days later, the stitches on the back of my head were removed, and I no longer had a reason to stay in the hospital. I added Dr. Kevin's contact information using a social media account I didn't use often. While continuing to build up our friendship, I also left myself a backup plan. Even if he couldn't become my ally, at least he wouldn't easily become Sunny's future tool for killing people. During this period, things were relatively calm. While preparing for her coming-of-age ceremony, Sunny frequently updated her Facebook. The content was nothing more than how much her mother loved her and what else her mother had bought for her. There were a lot of likes under her posts, and people were discussing the prices of various limited editions and custom-made items. She also inadvertently showed off several supercars and an old villa in City H worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The comments section was filled with envy and jealousy. There were hashtags like hashtag Princess Sunny hashtag and other super topics, and there was almost a trending topic about her every day. In contrast, as the adopted daughter, I had completely become an insignificant figure, and no one cared about me. Occasionally, some onlookers asked about Luna, but it was no surprise that their questions were quickly brushed aside. In the past, I was sad and heartbroken by these blatant shows of off, but now, I thought it couldn't be better, as it gave me the opportunity to develop secretly. During this period, I secretly contacted Jack and asked him if he'll be back for Sunny's quinceañera. In my previous life, Jack wasn't present. for an extremely important gambling project. He personally went to the United States for the second round of negotiations. For the sake of the Collins family's face and public opinion, the Collins family publicly claimed that it was a grand ceremony for two bright pearls, a significant event held for both me and Sonny to make up for the missed coming-of-age ceremony, symbolizing double blessings for the Collins family. At that time, I didn't want to stick around shamelessly, but Riley said that if I didn't come, the outside world would think that the Collins family had neglected the adopted daughter after recognizing their own flesh and blood. This would be detrimental to the Collins family's reputation and the extremely valuable project that Jack was betting on to compete for, so I compromised. The result was that Sonny had premeditatedly put an aphrodisiac in my wine glass, and then asked Charles to trick me to the rooftop, where several wealthy playboys were already waiting. When I was in a delirious state and being brutally violated, Sonny brought her group of girlfriends and some young masters from prestigious families who were on good terms with me to the rooftop for some fresh air and, coincidentally, caught me in a disheveled state, struggling with three men. These three wealthy young masters insisted that I had taken the initiative to seduce them. Coupled with the powerful hallucinogenic effect of the drug, I acted like a slut in front of everyone. And everyone firmly believed it. Among the people who were brought up to watch that day was Oscar, the young master of the Smith family whom I had adored for many years. Since then, I became the slut and bitch laughed at and despised in the social circle. That time was the beginning of my descent into the abyss. I knew that I couldn't avoid such a plot, so I had something important to confirm. Dad, for the coming-of-age ceremony of Sonny and me the day after tomorrow, can you come back? I asked Jack a bit nervously. Do you need me to be there? Jack asked in return, sounding a bit like a cold and domineering CEO. I know you're very busy, Dad, and you're dealing with very important things, but I haven't seen you for almost a month, and I want you to be there to see me that day, I said coquettishly, feeling a bit genuinely wronged. There was only a 3-second pause on the other end of the phone, and then Jack said, "Okay, I understand, I'll be back on that day." I was overjoyed. Sure enough, my guess was right. From the previous details, I had already noticed something slightly off. In the plot of that sadomasochistic novel, when Jack learned that I was an imposter, he was cold and disappointed, but that day, Jack was overly calm, and he didn't even try to hide his affection for me. This was something that wasn't in the original text. It was just that Jack left home soon after. And the plot quickly followed the normal track of me being suppressed in the Collins family. After I awakened, I didn't notice this at the first moment. Now, I can confirm that my father, Jack, in this life is the second person who has not been tampered with by that damn plot so far. One Dr. Kevin was already enough to surprise me. With Jack, the head of the Collins family, added, I really wanted to cry with joy. The coming-of-age ceremony 3 days later was extremely grand and luxurious. The grand hall of the Collins family's own 5-star hotel was resplendent with gold and jade. Everyone entering and leaving needed to present a specially made invitation. There were bodyguards and security measures. Many top business and political figures came, and several well-known producers and celebrities were also invited. It was like a high-profile cloud-top press conference. Sonny was wearing a purple dress, a pure handcrafted custom-made dress by a French master. It was rushed and delivered in a month at double the price. The more than 3,000 diamonds on it were almost blinding me. She was surrounded by people toasting and exchanging glasses, enjoying the almost worshipful flattery, but she didn't forget to hold my hand to create an image of deep sisterly affection. Mother Riley was socializing with political figures while gently calling me and Sonny forward. This is my daughter Luna, whom you've met before. This is my daughter Sonny, whom I just found. I hope you seniors will take care of them in the future. As the daughter of a political figure, putting aside her hysteria in the plot, Riley spoke with great propriety in public. She didn't mention the word adopted daughter and put me before Sonny, which made the uncles who had watched me grow up feel very comfortable. Sure enough, several seniors showed satisfied smiles. Riley, you're really lucky. You have 2 daughters, and they're both so beautiful. That's right. They're also excellent, just like you. What kind of boys will be worthy of them in the future? Oh, they're really something. While busily socializing, Riley subtly gave the central position to Sonny. Sonny had a sweet tongue and quickly made several seniors happy. One of them even wanted to introduce his grandson to her. In just a dozen minutes, she turned the situation around and left me in the dust. The power of the main plot was indeed strong. The scene was never dull. Riley was very sophisticated, and Sunny was even more in the spotlight, graceful, sweet, and charming, even if she didn't speak. The elders, friends, and girlfriends I knew at the scene all liked her. Without exaggeration, if there was a dog at the scene, it would definitely wag its tail at her too. I was forced to be overshadowed. The coming-of-age ceremony for two people had become a showcase for one person, however, unlike in my previous life when I stood there stupidly. This time I ate and drank as I pleased. By the way, I found Oscar, the young master of the Smith family, in the corner. Why don't you go over there? I asked Oscar curiously, nodding towards Sunny, who was being praised so much that she seemed to be blooming. She's not as pretty as you. Why should I go over there? Oscar said surprisingly. I was so startled by his sudden words that I spat out a mouthful of champagne and coughed continuously. Cut, I was just kidding, you actually took it seriously. Oscar rolled his eyes speechlessly. I was so angry that I wanted to punch him. Just as I was about to say something more, someone called my name and said, Luna, it's time to go on stage and blow out the candles. It was Charles, who had appeared beside me at some point. On his expressionless face, there was a gentle smile, but there was a barely noticeable viciousness in his eyes. On the stage, Sunny was incredibly beautiful under the spotlight. She held 2 glasses of champagne and handed one to me. That was the glass of wine that had been laced with a powerful aphrodisiac, the wine that would make me a slut. Brother, I've already had quite a lot to drink today. Can I skip it? I turned around and, once again with a glimmer of hope, pleaded with Charles. I fantasized that beneath the iceberg of this plot, that tiny crack could expand into a chasm that would cause everything to collapse. Unfortunately, Charles only hesitated for a couple of seconds before rejecting me. Be a good girl, sister. This is such an important moment for you and Sunny. It would be such a buzzkill if you don't drink. On the stage, Sunny held up her glass and smiled innocently. Below the stage, political and business elites had gathered, all looking at me expectantly. I couldn't help but feel a sense of desolation. Even though I knew the plot, there was still that feeling of helplessness, as if when fate demands one's death, one has no choice but to comply. Under the gaze of everyone, I took the glass of wine from Sunny and drank it all in one gulp. As expected, there was no way to avoid it, was there? After blowing out the candles, it was Sunny's moment to shine. There was the dance, the party, and she was waiting to take people upstairs to get some air and witness my downfall. By now, I was starting to breathe rapidly. Oscar was very perceptive and noticed that something was wrong with me. He came over and asked, Luna, are you not feeling well? Do we need to call a doctor? I was gasping for breath, and my eyes were gradually glazing over. Oscar was about to say something more, but Charles walked over, put his arm around my waist, and said, my sister has had too much to drink. I'll take her to the lounge. Charles's expression must have been very calm. So Oscar was also a bit swayed. She's had too much to drink. She seemed fine just now. How can she have such a low tolerance for alcohol? Well, take good care of her. Charles didn't say anything and helped me walk away. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the chosen daughter, Sunny, and no one noticed our departure. Sure enough, Charles took me to the rooftop. There were 3 playboys, A, B, and C, who had been waiting there. I knew them, since they were young. They had been unruly, relying on their wealthy families. One of them had pursued me before, but was rejected by me. Presumably, he had always held a grudge. My face was flushed. I tried to grab Charles, but he dodged. Enjoy it well, you won't have another chance in the future. Charles smiled and pushed me towards the 3 of them, then turned and left. Luna, do your parents know what you're like now? He said as he stepped forward and tried to touch my face. I turned my head to the side. You still know how to dodge. It's okay. It's more exciting when you resist. B and C exchanged a look and stepped forward to try to hold me down. I caught my breath for a while, then grabbed B's arm. Ouch, you're quite proactive. It seems Sunny was right. This Luna is really two-faced. She acts as proud as a peacock on the outside, but she's actually a slut on the inside. B laughed heartily and reached out to grope my chest. But just as he tugged at my clothes, I suddenly leaned forward and, with a wow, spat out a mouthful of dark blood onto B's arm. B was so frightened by the sudden turn of events that he let out a scream and instinctively tried to push me away, but I held on tightly. While spasming in pain, I continued to vomit blood. The 3 people at the scene had never seen such a sight and were terrified. they scrambled to get as far away from me as possible. Just then, Sunny's group of girlfriends and relatives arrived as planned. When they saw this scene, they were also stunned. The three big men at the scene were so scared that they sat on the ground. I was on my knees, trembling in pain and vomiting blood. There was blood all over my body and the ground, a mess of red and black. Seeing that my clothes were still intact, that there was some distance between me and the others, and that my mouth and body were covered in blood, Sunny was also taken aback and didn't know what to say for a moment. Since you're not saying anything, then this time, listen to me. So, I tearfully confronted her. Sunny, why did you poison me? Why are you trying to harm me? It hurts so much. I'm going to die. I was partly acting for others to see, and partly I was really in so much pain that it felt like all my internal organs were being twisted together. The people present had never seen such a scene and were in a state of chaos. Oscar rushed forward and hugged me, shouting, "Call the doctor now." Dr. Kevin arrived in a timely manner with the emergency rescue team, and I was out of danger. I didn't do it. It wasn't me, Sunny explained in a flustered manner, just like I had done countless times before. Everyone saw that it was Sunny who had handed me that glass of wine, but her expression was just too innocent. There must be some misunderstanding here. Someone spoke up. Yeah, even the stupidest person wouldn't be so stupid as to poison someone in public. She didn't die, did she? Could this be some kind of trick that Luna staged herself? Surely not. It was really scary just now. Well, it's hard to say. Look, the doctor even arrived so quickly. There's a good chance this was premeditated. If that's the case, then it's a case of framing. Luna is really vicious. There were whispers among the crowd. Sure enough, as I had expected, in this world, even though I had almost lost my life, everyone would still side with Sunny, who would play with their own life like that. Thinking of the thrilling rescue just now, Dr. Kevin rarely lost his temper, but his words were drowned out by the scornful jeers of the people present. Dr. Kevin, you seem to care a lot about my sister. Could it be that you already knew you'd have a chance to show off your skills today, or did you see me poison her? Sunny gradually regained her composure and taunted. Riley's tone also became sharp. Or is this a play that you two collaborated on? Dr. Kevin looked at Sunny's innocent and naive face and hesitated. He didn't dare to contradict Mrs. Collins, so he fell silent. There were quite a few people from the media and the entertainment industry present. Some were secretly recording and taking videos with their phones. The truth didn't really matter, whether it was framing and poisoning or the vicious adopted daughter staging it herself. Tomorrow's front page headline was already in the making, with countless views. You see, Sunny hardly had to do anything to turn the situation around, but after experiencing so many deaths in different lifetimes to achieve this awakening, how could I just sit back and wait for my doom? Whether it's framing or being called vicious, this method of sacrificing a lot to harm the enemy. At least I'm not the slut who was naked and humiliated in front of everyone in my previous life. Moreover, the good show has just begun, hasn't it? Just then, a sound of footsteps approached. Our father, Jack, had arrived. He came at just the right time. The domineering CEO looked at me, who had had my stomach pumped and was connected to a breathing tube, and then when he looked at the others, there was a murderous intent in his eyes. Jack's aura was so powerful that everyone present, including Sunny and Riley, didn't dare to breathe too loudly. Sorry to have caused everyone such an unpleasant experience. Before the truth comes to light, please take a rest over there and be patient. Jack coldly scanned the people around him, to avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings and social impacts. I have already blocked all communication here. If I see or hear any bad rumors tomorrow, I'm sorry, but I will hold each and every one of you accountable. Although the people present had some complaints, they also knew the seriousness of the matter. So they sat down in the VIP area nearby and waited. Jack continued, check the surveillance footage, and have the wine in the glass tested immediately. Dad, you don't believe me. There was surprise and sadness in Sunny's tone. Jack didn't even look at her. He stared at the various medical electronic test data attached to me, his brows furrowed tightly. I thought that the estrangement between us due to not seeing each other for more than 10 years could be gradually eliminated. But I never expected that in your heart, the trust you have in me, your biological daughter, is less than that in an adopted daughter. Sunny shed tears, looking like a pitiful little flower who had suffered a great deal of injustice. Then she forced a smile and said firmly, if this can clear my suspicion in Dad's heart, Then go ahead and investigate, of course. She wasn't afraid because the surveillance footage of some key areas had long been destroyed. And no one could find even the slightest clue, but soon she couldn't smile anymore, because the butler and the security personnel had retrieved the high-definition surveillance footage of the whole day, which had no blind spots. In the footage, her mother, Riley, had put some unknown substance into the wine glass in a hidden corner, and then walked to the stage and handed the glass to her. In the enlarged surveillance footage, one could even see the lip movements that Riley made to give Sunny a hint when she handed her the glass, as well as the frozen frame of the mother and daughter exchanging a knowing smile. Every detail on the high-definition projection screen was crystal clear. This can't be true, there was clearly no surveillance here. Sunny realized she had said the wrong thing and quickly covered her mouth, but it was too late. Everyone stared at her in disbelief. No, I don't know anything. Mom handed me the wine, I don't know anything. Sunny was truly flustered this time and started to explain incoherently. So you're throwing your mother under the bus. Should I say you're a bad teammate or a filial daughter? Sure enough, Riley's face turned green when she heard this. What can be proven by such an incomplete video? I saw that Luna has a low tolerance for alcohol, so I put some hangover medicine in it. What's the problem? Riley composed herself and said unhurriedly, Mr. Jack, the test results are out. Just then, the butler ran over, and it was a very timely slap in the face. The results show that the main ingredient mixed in the wine is arsenic trioxide, which is what we call poison. Poison? How is that possible? Riley shouted out of control. How could it be poison? Also, the butler paused and looked around at the big shots in the room, as if he wasn't sure whether he should say it or not. Speak. Jack's voice was gloomy. Also, I had someone check the fingerprints on the wine glass. Besides Miss Luna, only Miss Sunny and Riley's fingerprints were on it. The butler said it all in one breath and didn't dare to make another sound. Riley was silent, and Sunny didn't know what to do. Everyone present was filled with confusion and puzzlement. As I understood it, the existence of these big shots and celebrities in the original novel was to push the plot of the sadomasochistic novel forward. They were supposed to support Sunny to help her defeat me, but now, it was illogical to support Sunny when the physical evidence was so clear. Doing so would only cause the plot to have a bug, so they didn't take any further action. The senior figures in the political field stared at Riley and Sunny in disbelief, with confusion and disappointment in their eyes. Call the police, the senior figures said. No, it really wasn't me, Riley shouted. But you're a suspect, aren't you? Jack said. You're talking nonsense. I didn't do it. Riley stepped back while shouting confidently, I've always treated Luna as my own daughter. How could I do such a thing? Treat her as your own daughter? I heard that you made Luna move into the nanny's room, Jack said coldly. Is it treating her as your own daughter, or are you impatient to make way for your real daughter? I was only away for a few days, and you treated her like this. Also, I'm asking you, how did Luna get the injury on her head? Jack walked forward, suppressing his anger. With each step he took, Riley took a step back, feeling guilty. Sister accidentally fell by herself. Sunny quickly tried to excuse her mother. No, it was Mrs. Collins who pushed Miss Luna, and that's why she hit the wall. I sewed the stitches on the back of her head myself, and several nurses from the hospital who were present that day can testify to the situation. Dr. Kevin stood out, his face full of seriousness. I never thought Mrs. Collins was such a person. They're all her children, even if Luna isn't her biological daughter. There's no need to be so cruel. Exactly, Luna almost lost her life today. There was a hubbub of voices around. The NPCs had resumed their roles. Everyone was blaming Riley, but no one mentioned Sunny. Sure enough, in order to correct and salvage the plot, it was necessary to maintain Sunny's persona and innocence, so Riley had to be sacrificed for the time being. Even if she wasn't convicted, in front of so many big shots in the political and business fields, with such suspicion and a stain on her character, her political career was over from then on. I knew that Riley's career was finished. Yes, the play I staged by turning the situation to my advantage at the risk of half my life had always targeted Riley from the very beginning. I knew too well that as the main character, Sunny couldn't be easily brought down like this, but Riley was different. Although she was the final boss used for the plot twist at the end, precisely because of this, there wasn't much description of her in the previous storylines. It was all about scenes of her suppressing me, so I gambled that by using this incident, I could cut off some of Riley's power. In this way, Sunny's backer would also be greatly weakened. At this point, the tiny gap on the iceberg had finally formed the first visible crack. Although the matter was suppressed, it still caused quite a negative impact, and Riley and Sunny became much more low-key because of it. Seizing the opportunity, I hinted to Jack that since I wasn't the biological daughter of the Collins family and such an incident had occurred, I wouldn't be able to live in peace in the Collins family in the future, and I begged him to let me go. I also asked him to help me find out if I still had any living relatives. Of course, I didn't dare to leave the Collins family. I didn't dare to take the risk of letting Sunny out of my sight. I was afraid that with just a moment of carelessness and slack on my part, this daughter favored by fate would take over the Collins family for herself, turn Charles into a devil, and push Jack, the young master of the Smith family, and all the others, including me, into the abyss. I said all this just to make Jack investigate my identity. How could an orphan be allowed to take the place of someone else in an international top-level private hospital like Maria Hospital? If even I could find the problems in the orphanage's files, how could Jack be fooled? What kind of tricks are you playing again? Riley stared at me viciously. Isn't it enough that you've ruined my reputation by acting like you're dying? Do you also want to move out and damage the reputation of the Collins family? Could it be that sister is still suspecting that I harmed you because of the misunderstanding at the birthday party the other day? Sunny sniffled pitifully. That's right, they defined the act of putting the drug in the wine as a misunderstanding, by relying on the scene in the surveillance footage where Charles took me upstairs. They shifted all the blame onto Charles. How could I suspect my sister? You're the real daughter of the Collins family, yet you were lost outside for so many years because of me. I just want to know, as an orphan, how could I have been mistakenly swapped with you? My tears fell even faster than hers. As I cried, I said, such a strange conspiracy. What if there are bad people with ulterior motives who want to take over the Collins family's property? What if you hadn't been found? Wouldn't I have become a sinner? Sunny was stunned and didn't know what to say for a moment. There was a trace of barely noticeable guilt on Riley's face. Could it be that sister is doubting my identity? Sunny said unhappily. Of course not, I said slowly, enunciating each word clearly. I'm just doubting my own identity. Also, fortunately, I had someone check and repair all the surveillance cameras in the hotel a day in advance. Otherwise, I might have either died or lost my virginity. I looked at Sunny and Riley with a hint of mockery. After a brief moment of deathly silence, Sunny jumped up instantly. It's you knew everything. Riley also widened her eyes and let out a hysterical scream. You knew it all along, didn't you? You replaced the medicine and then framed me. The two of them looked at me in disbelief, as if they had seen a ghost. And there was a trace of fear in their expressions that I had never seen before. This made me feel extremely satisfied. What do I know? I retorted. Their expressions were as ugly as if they had eaten shit. Do you know that your mother dared to do it but didn't dare to take the blame, and in the end, it was the illegitimate son Charles, whom you despise the most, who had to take the blame? I added fuel to the fire in her heart. You bitch. Riley lost control and rushed forward to pull my hair. Sunny shouted for them to stop fighting and came over to seemingly mediate. She subtly held me down. Woohoo. Don't hit me anymore, Mom. I was wrong. Don't hit me anymore. It hurts so much. I pretended to struggle feebly and didn't resist at all. Soon, I was pressed against the wall, and there were bleeding scratches on my face. I was in a very sorry state. Riley felt that something was wrong, but her brief moment of thinking was overwhelmed by her rage. Remembering the humiliation she had suffered at the birthday party and her ruined future, her face was contorted with ferocity. And she struck viciously, like a madwoman. Even Sunny was a bit scared. Very well, this is the effect I wanted. This crazy and vicious appearance has all been captured on camera. It only took 3 short days to trace back from the orphanage to the nanny of that year. The domineering CEO Jack was far more efficient than I had imagined. Without any surprise, my DNA matched Jack's genetically, and it also matched Charles's. From the nurses and doctors of that year to the fake files of the orphanage. Jack used his own means to conduct a thorough investigation. Soon, the truth about my identity, the death of the nanny, and the mastermind behind the swapping of the real and fake daughters, were all uncovered one by one. So, you killed Judy back then. Jack grabbed Riley by the neck, his tone tinged with anger. Judy was the name of my biological mother and Charles's, the nanny of that year. Riley was kneeling on the ground, her face turning blue as she opened her mouth. Her expression was distorted by fear and pain. "Dad, please don't do this," Sunny cried and stepped forward, but she was kicked away and fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. Jack's grip was so strong that he almost choked Riley into a coma. If I hadn't pulled him away, Riley would definitely have died on the spot. When Jack released his hand, Riley slumped to the ground and gasped for breath. "So, you were the one who ordered someone to swap Luna and Sunny. You've been so nice to Luna all these years, just so that one day you could bring Sunny back and take revenge on me." There was a rare look of pain and anger on Jack's face. Riley recovered and stared at Jack with fear and venom. Suddenly, she burst into crazy laughter. "That's right, I did it all. Are you satisfied now?" Riley said as she laughed. "Wasn't it enough for you to ruin Charles?" Jack shook Riley's shoulders angrily. It turned out that Jack knew how badly Riley had treated Charles. He had always known, he just never said anything. "Not enough, of course not enough." Riley laughed until tears came to her eyes. "How could just one bastard satisfy my hatred?" Riley laughed maniacally. As she laughed, tears streamed down her face, and she actually looked a bit pitiful. "When you were just emerging in the business world, there was a project that held the key to your success, but you couldn't get it. It was me who used my connections to help you. When there was a shortage of $50 million for the capital advance, it was also me who risked being reported and embezzled the money for you. You wouldn't be where you are today without my support." Riley continued. "You said you wanted to be with me, but you never told me that you already had a son. You only confessed it on our wedding day. How could I not hate you? What's even more hateful is that the mother of this bastard actually sneaked in among the servants and continued to live in my house, coming and going right under my nose until I caught her in your room. I hated her so much, so much. You repented to me and said you would send that bitch abroad and she would never come back. I believed you, but when I was 7 months pregnant, I accidentally saw that bitch. And she was also pregnant." Riley gritted her teeth and trembled. "Then I found out that all these years, you had been secretly in touch with her behind my back. Around the time I was pregnant, she was also pregnant with your child. I hated you so much, so much. I hated myself for being so stupid, for believing you, and for still not being able to leave you even though I was deceived." Jack frowned and remained silent. "Charles and I also kept quiet." With red eyes, Riley continued. "I hated her to death. I could have run her over with my car. And there were 1,000 ways to make her die a violent death, but that would have been too easy for her and for you, so I wanted to take revenge on you. I endured it until the moment she gave birth. I bribed the doctor to make her have a massive hemorrhage and told her that the baby was stillborn. I heard that bitch didn't even close her eyes when she died. Ha 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 ha. The most ridiculous thing is that after she died, you didn't even bother to come and see me because of her. Newborn babies all look more or less the same at that age, so I swept them right under everyone's noses, and you didn't have a clue. Ha 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 ha. I wanted to give Luna the best love and then take everything away from her. I wanted to make their siblings kill each other. Ha 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 ha." The more Riley talked, the crazier she became, and she almost couldn't catch her breath from laughing. Charles, who had learned the truth, remained silent for a long time. He had thought about the reasons why his parents didn't love him. Over the years, he had tried his best to become excellent and even joined forces with Riley to do evil things, just hoping to get his parents' attention, but he never expected that both he and I were just tools for Riley's revenge, which she didn't care about at all. His hands were shaking violently behind his back. Sunny also stared at the crazy Riley in shock. The first 18 years of her life after being wrongly adopted weren't very good. After being recognized by the Collins family, Jack treated her indifferently, and only her mother, Riley, treated her like a precious jewel and granted her every wish. She had thought that being wrongly adopted at birth was just bad luck, and being recognized by the Collins family was her chance to change her destiny. But she never expected that those were the 18 years that originally belonged to her and were abandoned by her mother out of hatred. I actually felt a bit of pity, but then Jack spoke, and what he said left me stunned. Jack looked at Riley with confusion and asked seriously, "Don't you really remember? We've been in a marriage of convenience from the very beginning. You never loved me, and from the start, you knew about Judy's existence." I was shocked beyond words by these few short sentences. My mind was working at high speed. Countless speculations exploded in my head and then gradually became clear. Is it ridiculous? It is ridiculous. How could I have forgotten that I'm in a sadomasochistic novel? How could I have forgotten that since the plot can imprison me, it can also imprison others? Charles is like this, and so is Riley, in order to make all the abuse and pain seem real and reasonable. This novel, The Return of the Rich Daughter, is so despicable that even the original sin is fake. So, from Jack's few words, I pieced together another story. When Jack was young, he fell in love with a girl named Judy. That girl graduated from a prestigious university, was beautiful, and had everything going for her. The only drawback was that her family was ordinary. A family like Jack's required a marriage of equal status. Even though the girl gave birth to a son for the Collins family at an early age, Jack's parents still threatened to die if he married her. Then the Collins family met Riley. Riley came from a renowned family that everyone envied. Her parents were high-ranking officials with great influence in City F. She was a real socialite in the political circle and had a strong political ambition. She needed money, a lot of money to pave the way for her political career, so she approached Jack. Even though Jack clearly told her that he had a son and someone he loved, she didn't care because she didn't love Jack. All she needed was a marriage of convenience where they could each get what they wanted, so they signed a marriage agreement, not interfering with each other and getting what they needed. The girl moved into the Collins family under the guise of a nanny, however, even though she didn't love Jack. Riley later found that she couldn't stand having her possession taken by someone else. She became ruthless and crazy and drove the girl away. Jack had no choice but to arrange for the girl in City C, in order to prevent the vast property of the Collins family from falling into the hands of outsiders. Riley forced Jack to have a child, due to jealousy and distortion, whenever Jack showed the slightest bit of extra attention to the young Charles. Riley would almost beat the young Charles to death in places where Jack couldn't see. Jack couldn't protect Charles all the time, so he had to pretend to ignore him so that Riley wouldn't torture Charles anymore. This is the truth of the matter. The mistress is fake, the scumbag is fake, and even the hatred for revenge is fake. Only the murder is real, the indifference is real, the torture is real, and the pain is real. This sadomasochistic novel has played tricks on everyone with its plot. In the ending of my previous life, except for Sunny and Riley, everyone had a bad ending, but were Sunny and Riley really the final winners? In this sadomasochistic novel, all the NPCs are supposed to bear their hardships. It seems that the more melodramatic the plot is and the more miserable the male and female protagonists are, the more it can highlight the dramatic and great effect. But why? Why should everyone's fate be controlled by the so-called plot? Why should every devil be given a reason for being involuntary? Why should innocent people become wronged souls crying with blood and tears? I'm not willing to accept this, in order not to follow the plot line of my previous life. While building up Dr. Kevin's friendship level, I secretly contacted Oscar, the young master of the Smith family, and quickly applied to another international school that was different from the one in my previous life. During this period, under my hint, my father Jack investigated the assets and trust situation of the companies under the Collins family group. Sure enough, he found that Riley had transferred property to Sunny's name several times in private, after being disappointed in Riley. Jack quietly let the board of directors audit intervene and instructed the shareholders of the board of directors to file a lawsuit against Riley for illegal fund transfer and money laundering on the grounds of not being informed, because the amount involved was astonishing. Once convicted, Riley would face imprisonment and never be able to make a comeback, and the property under Sunny's name would also be recovered in full. Riley was in a state of confusion. And Sunny didn't want to get involved for fear of being implicated, but when she learned that the property under her name might be at risk, Sunny became anxious. Dad, you have to find a way to help Mom. Why is she being sued? Isn't this all the property of our Collins family? Sunny said in a panic. It's just a matter of giving it to me earlier or later. What's the difference? Jack was too lazy to pay attention to her, so she turned to Charles for help. Brother, please help me. Sunny still had that pitiful look on her face. Charles sneered. He almost wondered how there could be someone so stupid and evil. In the end, Riley coaxed and threatened Sunny into returning those huge amounts of assets. Although Sunny was reluctant, she was also afraid of the aggressive shareholders of the group and the powerful legal team. Because of this incident, Sunny had a lot of complaints about Riley, without the support of a large amount of funds. Sunny no longer had an overwhelming advantage in the Collins family and had to join the fight for the inheritance with the two illegitimate children. Again, The first thing Sunny did after calming down was to make up her mind to bring me down. After all, she thought that Charles, who had been ignored for so many years and was taciturn, was not a threat for the time being, and I was the real thorn in her side. So, while I was staying up all night preparing materials for the school application, my admission materials and articles had already been spread all over the internet, but they were signed with the name, Sunny. The browsing history and files on my computer, as well as any evidence that could prove that I wrote those articles, were all deleted clean. Just like in my previous life, the whole internet was praising how talented and beautiful Sunny was. And the university I had my heart set on extended an olive branch to her. At this moment, I was faced with a dilemma. It was simply too late to prepare everything again, and I would miss the opportunity to enter this school. If I sent the things I wrote to the school, according to the school's ethos, I would be regarded as a morally disgraceful academic plagiarist. Not only would I not be admitted, but I would also be laughed at by everyone. What a clever plan. Even if I was forced into the school with the Collins family's money, how could I, a good-for-nothing second generation, relying on my family? Compared to Sunny, who had real talent and learning, in my previous life, I argued my case, but I was framed as a plagiarist. In the end, I barely got into the school, and under Sunny's instigation, I suffered from campus bullying for 4 long years. But how could anyone fall for the same trick twice? While the whole internet was promoting Sunny's image as a wealthy, beautiful, and talented socialite, a post by Oscar, the young master of the Smith family, shot to the top of the trending list. He insinuated in the post, "The sky is clear, and the tea is brewed." Below it, he attached a screenshot of an article signed by Sunny and the original file I sent to him. The time was specifically circled. The time of my file was clearly earlier than the publication time of Sunny's article. Oscar's sarcastic remarks seemed to say nothing, yet they also seemed to imply a lot. Even the posting time seemed like an insult. So the comment section exploded. Does this mean that Sunny plagiarized? She took over her elder sister's admission essay. How is that possible? What can a screenshot prove? Everyone can make insinuations. If you have the guts, show the evidence. The gossip about the Collins family is really interesting. Why is Oscar speaking up this time? Don't talk nonsense. Just start a rumor about our Sunny with a fake screenshot. It seems that Luna is so arrogant because she has the backing of the Smith family. That's right. If you have the guts, show the evidence. What kind of behavior is it for a grown man to bully a young girl? So the evidence they asked for came. Oscar didn't indulge them at all. He threw out 8 pictures in a row, including the article framework, the communication and collision of ideas, the chat records of applying to a certain teacher, and the records of article review and revision. There was even a picture taken with a computer camera showing me revising the manuscript, with a time watermark on it. Yes, this time Oscar and I applied to the same international university. All the application materials and the essay were sent to him by me for his advice throughout the process. Even though Sunny deleted the archive on my side, Oscar still had the complete version. Sunny's paid online commentators were still clamoring, calling us things like picture dogs, and so on. They were guiding the public opinion while making veiled insults, implying that Oscar and I were having an affair and joining hands to bully Sunny. So I reposted Oscar's post and then attached a reply from a teacher to my essay and the admission notice of another university. The admission time was exactly 2 days earlier than the time when Sunny published her article. That is to say, before Sunny's article was published, my article had already been submitted for review and accepted by another university. Sunny could never have guessed that the university I originally planned to apply to this time was another one. The information and application target I released to her were just used to mislead her and make her send the materials as she assumed, and the admission examination times of these 2 universities happened to be a month apart, and it was clear which one came first. So after 2 days of overwhelming online battles, Sunny's persona collapsed. The public opinion started to bite back furiously. Sunny changed from a wealthy and talented socialite to a shameless thief who was jealous of and framed her elder sister and tried to plagiarize and take over her sister's admission qualification. People hated Sunny's deception. The truth was important, yet not so important. On the internet, everyone had the power to judge Sunny. She was the noble lady from a prestigious family that they could never reach in their entire lives, but on the internet, with just a few clicks of the keyboard, it seemed that they could kill her thousands of times. This was a carnival of online violence, but this time, the victim was Sunny. Sunny's admission notice was cancelled because of academic fraud. Even when she went out fully armed, she was still pointed at. The commotion at the coming-of-age ceremony hadn't completely subsided. And now the plagiarism incident occurred. Her conduct was seriously questioned within the social circle, coupled with the fact that she seemed to have offended the Smith family and Jack didn't support her from beginning to end. She was completely unable to hold her head up. The group of socialite girlfriends she newly formed also kicked her out of the group chat and avoided her as much as possible. The richer and more powerful a family is, the more they care about face. That's why in the previous life, Sunny was able to ruin my reputation and future with despicable means, but this time, she was scolded almost to the point of collapse and was so violently attacked online that she hid at home and didn't dare to see anyone. Her backer, her mother Riley, was removed from the board of directors because of embezzlement of public funds and money laundering. The heavy blows to her career and finances made Riley, who had taken good care of herself, look more than 10 years older overnight. Standing next to Jack, she didn't look like a wife but rather like an old woman. When they couldn't defeat the powerful, they took out their grievances on the weak. They also tried to suppress and control Charles by means of mental humiliation and physical abuse, in an attempt to regain their former status and glory in the Collins family. But they forgot that Charles had already suffered these tricks when he was a child. Now, Charles was no longer the young child who could only endure beatings and scoldings and had no power to resist. He was a young lion, and he was the young Jack. Even if Charles hid his claws and showed a harmless smile, he could easily tear them apart. What had restrained Charles before was just his obsession with his parents' recognition. Now, Charles, who had learned the truth about his biological mother's tragic death, already disdained the false blood relationship of the Collins family. How dare they provoke a lion? Making several wrong moves will surely lead to the disaster of danger and destruction. I didn't even need to take action. I just needed to casually put the proof of Sunny's mental abnormality that I got from Dr. Kevin in a place where Charles could see it, and Charles could make good use of it. Yes, I repeatedly built up the favorability with Dr. Kevin to ask him to help me, and that was to forge Sunny's mental abnormality medical records and certificates. Just as he did to me in the previous life, Sunny was locked up and no longer allowed to go out. She cried and made a scene, desperately trying to prove that she was fine, but her attempts to prove her innocence made her seem even more like a madwoman in the eyes of outsiders. After all, Dr. Kevin was an expert renowned in the industry. With Dr. Kevin's endorsement, how could the diagnosis result be wrong? Riley tried to use the connections and resources she had accumulated over the years to guide the public opinion and turn the situation around. One moment she posted the pitiful situation of Sunny to gain sympathy, and the next moment, the video of her hysterically hitting me while Sunny took her side when trying to mediate was widely shared by various internet celebrities. In that short video of just over 10 seconds, which was edited to cut off the beginning and the end, her face was twisted and ferocious. She tried her best to beat me to death, and her words were extremely vulgar and vicious, completely subverting people's impression of the Mrs. Collins, who was elegant, noble, and approachable. After the video was released, all sectors of society were shocked. Then, many of Riley's previous gray behaviors in the political field were exposed one by one as if it were premeditated. She was reported with real names for things like colluding with evil forces to forcibly demolish buildings in her early years, bribery in officialdom, yin-yang contracts, tax evasion, and the poisoning of her adopted daughter at that birthday party. Before an avalanche, everything is calm. When the avalanche comes, each snowflake is enough to cause an earth-shaking disaster. The severity of the situation triggered a great deal of public opinion. Unlike the previous gossip and feuds, this time, each item was a definite crime. The development of the matter was more rapid than I had imagined, and the public security, procuratorial, and judicial departments quickly intervened in the investigation, and even Jack couldn't influence it at all. After a long and torturous trial and judgment, Riley faced a long prison term. Sunny, who was once the daughter of the Collins family who was recognized with great fanfare, also became the daughter of a criminal. She couldn't accept such a blow and lost the protection of the Collins family. In a fit of anxiety, she really became mentally abnormal. She was terrified at home, smashing and destroying everything she could touch. She refused to eat anymore and cried out for her mother. The more she made a scene, the happier Charles was. Charles always approached her with that harmless and good-looking appearance, soothed her in a soft voice, and then unexpectedly extinguished all her hopes. After repeating this several times, Sunny really went crazy. Sunny, who appeared as the chosen daughter of fate, and the icy world she constructed, collapsed from then on. At this time, I was about to attend that international university which was among the top in the world, welcoming the bright future that was about to begin for me. In this life, I succeeded. I got rid of the pre-designed plot that was mired in the mud and the fate of dying with hatred, after those days of being on pins and needles. Those careful calculations, and those sleepless nights filled with despair, I finally see the bright light. I should be happy, I should be overjoyed, crying tears of joy and cheering with flags, but at this moment, I just felt like vomiting. I was disgusted with myself like this. I was once a young man who set out to slay the dragon, but in the end, I became the dragon myself. In the past, when Sunny returned, I was reduced to a fake daughter, being squeezed out, framed, suppressed, and becoming the laughingstock of the Collins family. Eventually, I died at the best age, full of pain and unwillingness. However, what Sunny is suffering in this life is no different from what I experienced back then, being framed, imprisoned, disgraced, and having a mental breakdown. I'm not overly kind-hearted, but I've always been afraid to imagine that if she was also just a tool used by the plot, then whether her so-called sins really hold true, if, and I mean if, she was also just a puppet being pulled by the powerful plot, then is she innocent? I dare not think deeply about it. During the summer vacation before entering the university, Charles invited me, Oscar, the young master of the Smith family, and Dr. Kevin to come back to celebrate my admission. Charles still had that noble, cold and harmless appearance. Anyone who saw him would think that he was an unparalleled elegant young man. If Sunny in the previous life was the daughter favored by fate, then Charles was a madman from beginning to end in the story, an extremely paranoid person who was willing to destroy everything if he couldn't get what he wanted. In this life, I can't be sure if he is still the elder brother I loved for 18 years. That silent but extremely outstanding young man. The change in the plot's direction has made Charles out of control. He ordered people to dress Sunny up like a beautiful doll. When Oscar and Dr. Kevin came, Sunny was wearing a well-tailored princess dress, round and shiny pearl earrings, and delicate little leather shoes. Sitting beside the piano, with her innocent face, she looked like a real princess. "Hello, Miss Sunny." Looking at Sunny, who was imprisoned at home, Dr. Kevin greeted her weakly, with a trace of guilt. Sunny looked up at him and smiled in a dazed way like a child. That smile hurt Dr. Kevin's heart and also mine. Oscar came over and greeted Sunny. Sunny just smiled stupidly. Oscar walked up to Sunny in surprise, waved his hand, and tried to communicate with her, but he still only got a naive and dazed giggle in return. "Is she really crazy?" Oscar turned to me and asked in a low voice, a bit surprised and sympathetic. I shook my head and then nodded, not knowing what to say. Just then, Charles came over. When Sunny saw Charles, her eyes lit up and she actively reached out her hands to ask for a hug. Regardless of the presence of outsiders, Charles stepped forward and gently picked Sunny up around the waist. There was doting and deep affection in his eyes. He said, "Sunny, be good, I'm here." That was definitely not the look an elder brother should have when looking at his younger sister. Remembering what Charles had done in the previous life, my heart suddenly ached sharply. Yes, I hated Sunny, hated Riley, and hated those who made me fall into the quagmire in the previous life. But from beginning to end, I just wanted to save myself, not to change from a victim into a perpetrator. I watched as Sunny was well-behaved and dependent in Charles's arms, and looked at the obscurity in Charles's eyes. It was as if I saw myself who was destroyed in the previous life. The madness behind Charles's tenderness made me tremble and want to run away. "Are you okay?" Dr. Kevin stood behind me quietly and gently pressed my arm. Only then did I realize that I was shaking violently. "Nothing, I'm fine." I came back to my senses, shook my head, and wanted to step forward to stop Charles's further actions. Charles's intimacy with his half-sister was a bit excessive, making Oscar and Dr. Kevin feel uncomfortable too. As outsiders, they didn't say much. I walked up and helped Sunny to rest on the sofa. Charles smiled at me, and that smile made me feel uneasy. Then Charles came up to Oscar and asked him, "Do you like my sister? Which sister of mine do you like? Are you crazy?" Oscar pushed Charles angrily, looking a bit flustered. I guessed it right. Charles wasn't angry either. He gracefully adjusted his clothes and asked again seriously, "So, which one do you choose?" I was so ashamed by Charles's crazy words, My love for Oscar had been a feeling buried in my heart for many years, but he made such a bad joke about it. Dr. Kevin beside me also turned a dark face. Oscar was even more furious. He had always been a bit unruly and of course couldn't stand this provocation. He rushed forward in one step and punched Charles in the face, but unexpectedly, the seemingly slender Charles easily blocked it. Sunny was frightened and hugged her head and screamed. Ah, Dr. Kevin quickly went to soothe Sunny. Oscar wanted to hit Charles again but was afraid of stimulating Sunny again. He was angry and didn't know what to do. Charles, what on earth do you want to do? I asked him with suppressed anger. To find you a good home. Charles still smiled gently, but he suddenly took out a dagger from nowhere and held me captive. Guess which one the young master of the Smith family will choose. Everyone was stunned by the sudden change. Even Sunny instinctively didn't dare to make a sound out of fear. Oscar, choose one of my two sisters, and I'll send the other one to death. Charles said in a flat tone as if he was talking about something as ordinary as the nice weather today. Charles, what the hell is wrong with you? Let Luna go right now. Oscar was anxious. Dr. Kevin wanted to step forward, but as soon as Charles applied a little more force with the dagger, blood seeped out from my slender neck, and Dr. Kevin immediately dared not move. Put the knife down. Oscar was almost going crazy. She's your sister, your own sister. I know, Charles smiled. The kind with the same father and mother, so, which one are you going to choose? Charles was truly crazy. I choose Luna, okay, I choose Luna. Oscar was almost pleading. Charles smiled slightly and continued in a calm tone. You have to think carefully. If you choose Luna, Sunny won't be able to live in my hands. You know, she's a mental patient. It's not illegal for me to kill a mental patient in self-defense. Oscar's face darkened. This wasn't about making a choice. It was about forcing him to kill someone. Charles, what on earth do you want to do? I asked through gritted teeth. I really wanted to ask when this endless torture would finally end. In this desperate situation, how long would the reversed plot of the sadomasochistic novel continue to control Charles? I could hardly bear it anymore. Charles didn't say anything. He answered me with the dagger, applying a bit more force. More blood trickled down. Stop. I choose Luna. I choose her. Oscar was on the verge of collapse and shouted in pain. He chose me, even though he knew that this might cost someone else their life. Very well. Charles smiled in satisfaction and released me. Oscar and Dr. Kevin quickly rushed up to pull me away, afraid that something unexpected would happen. However, something unexpected did happen. As Charles had said, he killed Sunny. He was serious. When Oscar and Dr. Kevin's attention was all on me, in just that instant, Charles stabbed Sunny in the chest with a knife. Sunny only had time to let out a muffled groan before falling down, a blinding patch of crimson. This sudden and bloody scene almost made me suffocate. My ears started ringing, and I felt my whole body go numb and couldn't catch my breath, as if someone was choking my throat. No, something was definitely wrong. At this moment, there was a sound of something breaking in my mind. I felt a strange, light and extremely powerful, omnipresent thing dissipate like a wisp of smoke. I felt that an indescribable restraint was leaving me. Someone's been killed. The servants of the Collins family reacted and started screaming and calling the police in a panic. Oscar and Dr. Kevin reacted immediately and rushed up to subdue Charles. Charles calmly dropped the knife and didn't resist at all. Charles was pinned to the ground by Oscar and Dr. Kevin, with half of his face soaked in a pool of blood, looking eerie and enchanting. In the midst of the chaos, I saw Charles raise his face and smile gently at me. He made a silent mouth shape for me. The mouth shape was, "It's all over, sister, I love you, sister." Extra chapter, Charles's perspective. My name is Charles. I'm the nominal eldest son of the Collins family and also the most unpopular illegitimate son, since I was a child. I knew that my parents didn't love me, my father ignored me, and the so-called mother pinched me ferociously, stabbed me with needles, slapped me, and cursed me with the most vicious words in places where my father couldn't see. She called me a bastard of a bitch, a stray dog, and dirty garbage. She cursed me and asked why I didn't just die. From that time on, I knew that my life wasn't welcome, and I didn't deserve to live. Later, my mother got pregnant. She stopped hitting me and even disdained to look at me with contemptuous eyes. The servants of the Collins family dared not approach me, and my parents treated me like thin air. So, I stopped crying and making a fuss when I was very young because it was useless. I was like a ghost in the Collins family. Later, Luna came along. She was so small, like a pink dumpling. She didn't understand others' rejection of me, and she couldn't see all that dirt and disgust. She stuck to me like a little tail all day long. When others couldn't avoid me enough, she always eagerly wanted to fight with me, and she never cried even when she lost. She used her clumsy way to get my attention and made me feel for the first time my existence as a person and that I was needed. I liked this sister, but I killed her again and again, because we were both in a sadomasochistic novel, according to the plot. I did all the unforgivable evils in the world to her, time and time again. Life after life, watching her in extreme pain, watching her struggling desperately, watching the light in her eyes go out until she died, my heart felt as if it was being slowly tortured to death. I wished I could die myself, but everything was beyond my control. The real me seemed to be imprisoned in the darkness, watching myself numbly hurting her but being unable to do anything. Each and everything made me wish I could die immediately, even when she died. I just found out that she was my own sister, being killed by the person closest to her. How painful she must have been when she died. I awakened after her death. The moment I heard that she was my sister, I spat out blood on the spot. I wished I could go through the most dangerous places for her, even go to the deepest hell. With such regret, I struggled again and again. I begged God to leave her a glimmer of hope in this twisted story. Luna didn't know that I awakened earlier than her. In my previous lives, I succeeded, but the plot never ended. It was like a game level. You could get countless possible endings, but you couldn't save the game. It turned out that whether it was the abuser or the victim, it was just a cycle again and again. The protagonist of The Return of the True Rich Daughter was only Sunny from beginning to end. Only Sunny's death could truly end this novel. Only when Sunny's main plot declined could she be killed. I spent life after life and shed countless amounts of blood to come to this conclusion. Fortunately, this time, my Luna woke up from the plot. Fortunately, this time, it's still not too late. God knows how grateful I am. I guided Luna to follow the counterattack plot and step by step destroyed Sunny's storyline. When Sunny's luck had declined to an extreme, I killed her. How could I let my Luna get blood on her hands? I'll do this dirty thing. The young master of the Smith family in the previous life was a very good person. I don't have to worry about leaving Luna alone in this world after I die. I'm willing to trade my eternal damnation for Luna's peace, happiness, and joy. Anyway, I shouldn't have been born into this world in the first place. But my Luna is different. We have finally gotten rid of that despicable plot. It doesn't matter even if I become a murderer. This time, it's finally over. I'm so tired. I can finally let go. It's all over, sister. I love you, sister. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.